Hello there, beloved Ascension Pioneers, and welcome to this video update on how to truly live our divine magic. You know, so many times people tell me, wow, you're such a magical being. You know, what do you do? Wow, you're just so almost like ethereal walking in this earthly body. But here's the thing. Today's Spirit shared a very important message for us Ascension Pioneers that a lot of us tend to forget at times, and during this important shift within which we are now, we're moving through this tunnel phase where we really wish to exit on the other side full of purity of our true divine light, of seeing ourselves as capable of anything, and truly starting to shift from this third dimensional world, which is the material world, moving through this tunnel of magic, which is the astral planes, the astral world, the magical world, where we start to see different options, potentials, and then exiting on the other side, if I can even call it that, as living in a miraculous world of this fifth dimensional vibrational alignment and reality that we're really creating for ourselves. So this passageway really serves us as a tunnel of complete purification. And you know that this year our Jupiter moved into Virgo, which is all about that divine purity in all of ourselves, including our most physical human actions, which are very important reflections of our divinity. And then now at this time we also have so many planets moving into the sign of Virgo for about, let's say, a month. And it starts with Venus, which is today, and Mars as well. And then there's going to be this beautiful energy attunement again when we're really going to be shown our true divine potential for the next years to come and beyond. So here's the thing. A lot of the times we undervalue ourselves, and especially Ascension Pioneers are capable of seeing that divine beauty and, you know, highest potential in others, as well as seeing their human misembodiment, misalignment, and seeing, you know, where there's the lack that integration mode. But oftentimes we can't see it for ourselves. Oftentimes we're here still supporting, giving, nurturing others without fully knowing that we are also here to just be ourselves. And there was a huge misconception on this planet, and of course this applies to all separate mode based worlds of creation, which was the misconception of sacred sacrifice. You know, first, when there was a seeding of the human race here on this planet, there was a bringing of this illumined presence. The seed of the Christ itself was placed in the human in the development. And then later, as we move through these, the fall stages, you know, through these periods of time that reflected more that, you know, the opposing games, the good and evil, bad versus good, you know, the manipulator and the opposers, so the victors and those who feel that they are the victimized ones. And we often played this game, and through dogma there was the establishment of this so-called true sacrifice, which in truth was not really presented to us as sovereign human beings. This sacrifice, and you can read this, which I posted on my Ascension Pioneers Facebook page today. It's also beautifully described on my page Serapina Light under I Am Embodiment. You know, there's many separate compartments on my page that you can tune into. And in fact, what this was presented to us was to keep us in these lower planes, you know, and a lot of light workers thought that they're here and they're only serving the light. Well, with this integration period, this new golden era that we are starting now, you know, it's in the flourishing. It's going to be for many eons to come. But it begins now with our seed of Christ awakening at this present moment. And what's really taking place is us waking up to that fact that this was a misconception for us, which was meant to keep us in the dark, and really thinking that we're serving the light. You know, the light is only one side of the coin. You know, each coin has two sides, which are both the same. And through integration of Cosmic Love, we're now bringing that awareness of our neutrality, of our divinity back. And this flame of divine love needs to burn everything out that's not the truth. So in truth, we are serving the truth. We're serving all that is. Through pure divine love, we're not only serving the light, you know, and there was other fractions that were serving the dark. somebody needs to, make these scales right again, bring about that balance. And it starts with those who call themselves light workers. And there needs to be this shift into balance, the neutral workers, the pillars of light and love. And this means that we're here to serve the truth. So dissolving anything that is not of that truth, starting with our devotion to service. What is service really all about? I've shared this before in the summer as Jupiter moved into the sign of Virgo. And I displayed the act of devotion, what it truly means. And how this sacrifice was presented to us through dogmas was you need to give up the self so you can be holy for others, and you only become a saint and a holy being when you totally negate yourself, your human needs. Oftentimes this was presented to us and such. So these characters such as Jesua, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, even more recent ones like Mother Teresa, were also in a way popularized through the mainstream as to what they were really doing. And it was almost shown like they need to put their life aside so they can actually be there serving others. In truth, when we serve our highest calling, this path already is us. We're not giving anything up. So the only sacrifice made here is the sacrifice of dissolving the ego, the separate self, the individuality that thinks, I'm giving myself up in order to serve the light. This is still dualistic. This doesn't serve us in the highest order of true divine love, our divinity, our divine spark, our nature as Christed beings. So in truth, when we really serve all life in creation, when we serve through devotion, we need to first establish a sovereign sense of the self. And this doesn't come through this new age illusion, we're all one, without you realizing your own divinity, your own sovereign individuality as a soul first. I've shared this so many times before. That's why we're moving through this tunnel of this magical world to truly see where we are without the need to have these false titles and claims or whatever. Because a lot of times this perception of service and being in a way altruistic comes through ego that tells you you're a good person if you're altruistic, or you're a good person if you donate, or you're a good person if you do that. If it doesn't come from the heart, if it really comes from your mind telling you that you're going to earn some sort of title or appreciation or even attention from others, from the society, even from God as we perceive it, that's not really the God that is. It's just the perfect absolute, the omni of all that is, then we really are still serving through dualistic nature. So we need to replace this term sacrifice and service through sacrifice and diminishing yourself through the embracing of the absolute and really serving within true absolute devotion to your own rightful spirit. This comes through inner righteousness, not a sense of being right or good or kind and polite and all these things. These again are titles, these again are descriptions that put you in a certain box. So yesterday we were experiencing something at home, and Spirit showed me what is the main game playing out now here with many individuals who are crossing this threshold to come deeper into their personal ascension, is this liberation that comes through the need to dissolve all aspects that are really patterns of you that crave attention from others, from the outside, from external sources rather than your own internal source. What does this mean? When we come from the perspective of separation, we can't really plug into the infinite nature of love. We only plug into it partially through the filters that we have developed, like I receive love when I'm kind, or I receive love back from others if I seek attention in a certain way, if I draw their attention and their attention is at me, then wow. So then I'm in attention means I'm receiving love. A lot of these patterns for a lot of people were of course transferred from numerous embodiments, not just here on this planet, but a lot of them were shown to us in our childhood, because we've been through at home, and our mother had something like this in her own childhood when she always needed a presence of someone there physically. So when she didn't get it, she almost developed something to create this diversion so the attention would be on her, because sometimes parents didn't know how to always be there for the children or give them love and offer support. A lot of them were just put out there, handle themselves. So a lot of times, this could be developed as a sense of, I get love when I get attention. And this craving, it comes through craving. It's not whole and self-fulfilled. Can be then almost like it can turn into a psychosis of the mind. So we begin to develop these psychotic patterns, which in truth are illnesses of the mind. They're, we cannot attune to our holy state or wholeness when we do that. So we create these diversions and we seek attention rather than just by remembering what love truly is and how we always are receiving it from source. It's infinite supply, like the masters who serve through the illumined pool of the Mahatma golden white light. This is a unified light that is available to all. Of course, you need to be susceptible to it. It means filter free. So as long as we still have those filters, we're actually self-sabotaging ourselves. We can't truly live our magic. We can't access the highest potential of our soul, and we can't feel the love in all its infinite ways and forms. So what we do is we create these separate personas and ways of how we act and interact with others. And for my mother, for example, I'm just using her as an example. She doesn't mind. She likes to serve through her own examples. She often created injuries. So when she had an injury, the attention was on her, and she didn't want to get well. She didn't want to get better. So whenever she had an injury, it lasted for a while for her to recover, although she was always a healthy being. But throughout her entire life, she always had something. If it wasn't that, it was this, and it was that, and that. And this still continued, and it showed up so strongly now, recently, that I said to her, now, it's enough, because this pattern, obviously, through its numerous repetition, wants to show you something because it desperately wants to be released. But we are the ones, that means the conscious parent self, that is the aware self, the one that embraces the tinier aspect, almost like with its angelic wings, and you talk to it, you bring it back into wholeness. One example that Spirit gave me today was, how water is pure consciousness. It reflects the crystalline nature of our soul. So when you talk to water, just simply observing it already starts to change its structure. So everything you observe through love, through neutral detachment, through compassion, starts to vibrate with a higher essence. So it's the same with anything that you perceive as negative or as a pattern, even illnesses. For example, today I've read something about Candida online, and I was laughing at myself because I was like, I had this so many years ago, this thought about Candida and that I have it and these things. It was so many years ago, and I thought, wow, I don't even believe in that anymore. I'm sure that such a, bacteria as Candida exists, but, by allowing it in your body and thinking, it has an option to feed here off of me, then it does so, because this consciousness that speaks to everything, that observes through this awareness, feeds things. And if you feed it, that's where it is. So we're seeing these shifts within ourselves, what we're accepting as a reality and what we're no longer feeling as a reality. It isn't. It's people who constantly believe that each season you need to get a nozzle, I don't know whatever it is. So because it's winter and it's cold, and you need to get these infections because it's just seasonal. That doesn't exist. In my world, it doesn't. So the thing is that a lot of these things were created because we believed in them, because we fed them this energy, and they became a world on its own. So certain things really hold a tight grip on us, and the only thing we really need to do, it's so simple, it's to have a heart-to-heart conversation with that part of us that created this tiny little persona with these diversions and the cravings of attentions, and to really bring it back into wholeness. So imagine you're like embracing it with your angelic creation self wings. So it's very simple. When you talk to this part, like you're talking with a part of you that still feels separate, and then you feel how that part merges more and more with you, with the sovereign you. You no longer recognize it as a part. It already is a part of the whole, if you know what I mean. So you don't lose your individuality. You only lose the sense of identity and the lack of living through complete love. And when we seek attention rather than love, because we have this misconception that attention is love, it's not true. We will never really have the experience of love in all its shapes and forms, because we will apply love only to receiving it when this and this is like that and that, so conditional. And this really puts us away from who we are in truth, and we can't fully live our magic. So what does it mean to live our magic? At this point of the video, I would really like to give you some pointers in many different ways and forms, how it truly is to live that magic and to enter into that miraculous world where reality will start to respond to us differently, because we're sending it different vibrational signals. Our awareness changes, we observe through a different awareness, and therefore the world, the reality is reflecting that to us. So the vibrational alignment of the outer will start to reflect the inner. So if you want to increase the sense of miraculousness in your life, when things are just feeling like, oh, wow, I'm in awe, I'm in magic, it means that you're starting to increase the flow of love within yourself. One of the examples would be, people often say, how do you get guidance, And they only think that guidance comes to a certain way, so they create the filter. And that's why these filters need to be dissolved. For example, if I think guidance comes when I sit and meditate, and then it comes like a vertical descent of a certain energy wavelength that I'm then capturing or not, hearing or not, then again I'm limiting myself to all the guidance of spirit, which is just all. So I have a beautiful celestial attunement and Holy Spirit message on what is divine guidance. It's the third spirit message on my page, Set Up in the Light. It's called Divine Guidance, and you can find it under Spirit Attunements. And it shares the true benevolent nature of divine guidance, which is all things, all experiences, every single thing speaks to us. And the thing is that we're not embracing the vastness of how much expanded our consciousness is. We're only perceiving through a certain tiny ventricle, through a certain filter. Or love only comes when I have all the attention. I said to my mother today, my love was always, even when I was little, I didn't have those filters. My love was always for all. I always had the sense of universal love. I couldn't just give it to one and say, my heart goes only to you, and that's it. And a lot of times I felt in my life like people that I met were almost like struggling to get my attention, or they wanted to be better people to be in my presence. And I felt they actually achieved the opposite, because they weren't sovereign, they weren't authentic, so they created a lot of these egoic things that I felt, and I couldn't be next to them because I felt this was an illusion. And it's hard for me to be a filter-free, enlightened being, to talk to someone's ego in that way. Well, you don't perceive it as a separate, of course, but you see how sometimes people are in these illusions that if they persist too long, they begin to be delusions. And delusions are only when we can't recognize it. You can have an illusion and be aware of it, and still, integration needs to take place. You need that embodiment. But delusion is when you are in complete denial of that illusion, okay? When you're not willing to see your shadow aspect and have it work for the benefit of you. Sometimes if we know how to work with our inner power, which is love, our inner shadow will actually benefit us in terms of showing us things that are needed to be brought into wholeness. If we negate it, and I've had so much experience when there's a lot of negation present, because the person that is already aware, that's saying, wow, this is true, and they start to feel it, the pattern just naturally starts to dissolve. You don't need any special technique. All you need to do is that heart-to-heart, intimate conversation with yourself. Higher self embraces these aspects that don't feel whole and complete yet, and then bring it back into that wholeness. It's so simple. You don't need somebody doing energy work on you or whatever it is. That's only an additional, if you feel really drained or whatever it is in your life, but it's not the main source of your inner wholeness. So that healing that belongs to you, that is between you and spirit. And there's so much of this, and when we continue in this delusion, we can't see and live this reality, and we're asking ourselves, why does the world don't feel so miraculous to me, and somebody else is living it, and therefore must be something with that person, or people even start to envy others because they can live in this miraculous state. It's just because they've made those steps, to cross that tunnel, to enter through that space of complete purification and exit it on the other side as their true sovereign selves. So when you have that higher perspective within yourself, when you achieve it, you will be more in service to others, because you will have a higher perspective. Means that you're going to be able to hold a massive amount of light for others who are also exiting on the other side. So to be more miraculous is to not limit ourselves in any way or form. Where love comes from, where divine guidance comes from. And love and light are one. Guidance is that light that we're receiving, and love is how we're living it. It's how we're integrating it, and in both aspects of polarity, because we're moving towards unified polarity. There's still polarity, otherwise we wouldn't exist, but it's going to be a unified polarity for those ascending beings. And this ascension offers you the key to really be sovereign, to really be free of those filters of how do you think love will come to you, and how do you attain it. Because I had in my life a lot of people who you have that strong source of love, but instead of if people are not enlightened, they will start to They won't have value. They won't have respect for what's being there, for what's there. So they're going to try to say, I want a little bit more love, which is attention, of course. Whenever we say, I want a little more than someone else, you're seeking attention. You're not tapping into the love, which is, it's enough for all. You know, like angels, they can be with all of us simultaneously because they are in the expanded awareness, that this state of consciousness, which it's timeless, it's boundless, it's limitless, applied. And they're just reminding us of our own nature, the deepest levels of our being. So we can be at the same, you know, sameness, but in a physical form. That's what we're establishing here. We're in human form, and yet we can have this experience on our own level of how much we can do at this time. So I had this experience, you know, when people are like, instead of wanting guidance or love from you, they want your attention. So they're going to try to either poke you or message you, or sometimes even say things that are not really pleasant. And that, I remember this in my past when I was still, you know, coming into my power. I had a lot of that. And now I'm more easily susceptible to seeing beyond those illusions and beyond these entrapments of others that can be rather egoic sometimes. So when you feel somebody approaching you with love, they're a reflection of you that also is complete neutrality, it's complete compassion. Sometimes there's others who's like poking you and saying, haha, I'm here, give me a little more attention that you're giving to that person. And those beings are simply just not aware unto themselves that the supply is infinite, that they're not going to get it from you, nor from their mom or dad or family, or never like that. That can only be shared through mutual reciprocity, but it can never be given. You know, love is shared. You can't give your love to another. We often say that, you know, two people get married and we say, I give my love to you. Love is free and it has no form. We're constantly in flow with it, but we cannot own it. You know, we can own somebody and their love. We need to be free and be authentic as we are. So whenever we try to, you know, do that to others, it's going to ripple back right at us in a certain way. Not maybe through that person, but somewhere else. And then people say, why am I having these experiences then with other people? Well, maybe because you're doing it to someone else. But you're not aware of it, so your soul is sending you messages and saying, look, how does it feel when somebody does it to you? Just recognize it. It's not a punishment, it's a message, so you can come into the realization of it. And for me personally, all my life, I've just been minding my own business. I've been this completely withdrawn hermit, just doing my thing. But there was people, you know, they want this light, they want to have the pool of sacred light. They're not respectful for it, rather than just tapping into it and know that this is available to all. The illumined pool of masters is there for all, but you need to be an initiate that comes with reverence, with humility, with respect. And I see that people who weren't yet ready to ascend to that level, they didn't have respect for what is shared with them, what is offered to them. Even if that slap of awakening is that disillusionment, they don't have respect for it. They don't have gratitude for it. It means simply they're not ready to make those steps. So the more we are filter-free, the more we face these shadow aspects and see them as our messengers or our helpers through our personal rites of passage and soul initiation, the more we can really exit on the other side and enter a world which is miraculous and it's beautiful. And so many gifts and opportunities that really come from accessing the pool of love through humility and reverence and grace and beauty, and we're just tapping into it, but we're not saying, ah, the sacred pool is mine, you know, like in the Lord of the Rings, this is represented with the one ring of power. And everybody wanted it. It's like when you got the ring, you were almost cursed, because it's like, ah, my precious, I need to have it, I need to own it. And we are not realizing that that is really symbolic for the nature of our ego. Even in our personal relationships, you see someone, you like them. Even if it's a spiritual teacher, you want to be next to them. I see sometimes in this master retreats when they have these, whatever they have, what do they call them? You know, these gatherings that they hold. And I see that a lot of the people that are there, they just want to be there in the proximity of the master. Rather than seeing that master, their being that represents a reflection of their own mastery as simply is a shared space. And we don't need a direct physical proximity to a being to be overlighted with this essence of our own mastery, of all the masters, of all illumination, of living in this miraculous world where the angels and masters guide us, and we're one of them. We're unified with them. We're not separate. So I've written a lot about this on my Facebook page this week. Please check that out if you're guided, because a lot came through spirit. And I was really reminded of the fact that we don't always value ourselves the most. So a lot of pioneers, how they were serving others was through this denial of the self. And they said, well, I need to be here for this person. And they called it service, but they had a lot of resentment for what they needed to do. And if you're not doing it through joy, then it's not your service, it's not your calling. I'm sorry, it's just how it is. So when you look at the figure like Mother Teresa, what she did was probably joyful for her, otherwise she wouldn't do it. She didn't deny the self. She didn't do it in order to renunciate herself and all her needs. She just enjoyed doing that. And because each of us has our own unique path, we will enjoy different things. You know, my work never drains me. What I do is an infinite, sacred pool of bliss, and I love it. But sometimes when people come as these energetic vampires and they want my attention and this and constant, you know, this I don't enjoy because it's not my purpose. And this I'm leaving aside. I'm leaving for spirit to take care of because I'm just partially human as well. And I realize that. And we all need to realize that this humanness needs to be embraced and nurtured, and we also need to have joy through our service. Because a lot of this serving the light was through renunciating the self in order to, I don't know, and a lot of it was through this attention seeking. So you're a healer or whatever you are, to seek attention, to think, no, I'm really belonging with God because I'm a healer. You know, we don't need to do anything. Our value does not come from doing something. It really comes from living that soulful essence that is our own rite of passage. And what it is for me might be completely foreign to somebody else because it's not their job or mission or the need for them to understand. I had maybe a week ago someone who said that I always trigger them with my posts and they're trying to understand what I do. And I said, you don't need to. I said, why? Just do your own thing. Why would you even need? Because a person who is in resonance with something, they don't even need to understand. Most of the people who correspond with me, they say they already resonate with everything that I say, or they feel aligned with it already naturally. I mean, others probably, they just go away. That's perfect. Because we're not supposed to try to gain awareness or love or whatever it is. Whatever is aligned with us is already here in our life. Whatever is not, sometimes it falls apart, falls away. It's good. It dissolves. And what I've realized, what Spirit showed me, is that the same thing goes, you know, that we say we need to earn our sovereignty. You know, it's almost like, okay, there's a master. And you have a certain affinity to a certain master, or ascended master I'm talking about, or a physical being that, you know, reflects that enlightened humanity to you, and you feel drawn to them. You know, for a master, there's this proverb that says, we only need to do one step, and then the master will do those 9 steps towards us. But a lot of times I see people are not even willing to do that one, and it's just one. And it shows how lazy we are at times. I'm like, okay, you know, it's just not going to happen this way. You know, God and the angels and masters serve those who also show appreciation and serve themselves, because we are God. But if we don't want to realize it and we continue to postpone that which is truth and truthful for us and, you know, others, because we're one, then we're just in denial. And it's going to be continuously just wishful thinking for us. It's not going to be a direct experience. So the miraculous world belongs to those who live as an embodiment of the miracle of divinity, the spark that we are. And living through the principle of respecting all life in creation, respecting all other life forms, you know, animals. Are you valuing them? Are you, you know, even feeding yourself through this respect of all living creatures? All these things are a part of that. And there are certain passageways that we need to, you know, move through that threshold if we want to exit on the other side. If we don't do that inner work, then how can we expect the outer to align? And, you know, the master is always there for me. They're there. That means their presence is not denied to anybody. The awareness, the illumined presence is not denied to anyone. But the seeker eventually needs to become the initiate. So the seeking phase is when you're just seeking, but you're not yet doing the work. And then the initiate is the one that says, ooh, this is beautiful. This is, you know, magical. But in order to become miraculous, I need to do a certain amount of inner work and reflection. And, you know, dissolving those traits of mine that come through these filters and egoic reasoning, and it doesn't respect others, you know. I've had this experience myself when somebody really wanted my presence, and how they wanted it, you know, to come to them was by buying me presents. And I was like, I realized this in the end. I said, they really came out as this nice person. I'm so nice, you know, I just have a big heart and I can share what I have. But I realized eventually that they only bought presents for me if I'm dancing the way they want me to dance, and that's conditional. And I really saw, wait a minute, this is not pure, and I don't want things like that. You know, if the present is not heart-centered, it's not pure, if it's not coming through illumination and joy, share joy, then it's just not. It's not for me. It's not my sovereignty. It's not within integrity. And I choose to remove myself from any situations that reflect that. Because it's not about the physical. It's not about those kind of aspects. It's about living in the miracle of true joy and companionship that is sovereign, that is coming through grace. No other filters needed when you live in grace. So when you have these situations in your life, it's important to reflect on them, because a lot of the facts that you see maybe are like 50% true, but there's 50% of that which is hidden. And to live in the miraculous world, to live in this magical state, we need to see also those other 50%. And this is where the work begins. So my fellow initiates of spirit, I know sometimes this can be a rather challenging subject for most of us. We just want to be in the miraculous world already, but without doing the work. It doesn't come this way. I work a lot with Master Serapis. He's a great being. And he always has this quote that says, just do it, you know. It's not pushy. It's, you know, it's an aspect of love that's what sometimes we call tough love. Tough love does not mean it's punishment or, you know, it's like forcing someone. It just means that sometimes, you know, there's a certain amount when you allow others to naturally unfold into something. And when you see that they're still like going in a maze round and round, then you say, you know, wake up. It's not how it is, because why otherwise would you be spinning in circles? So this is how Serapis functions. It's like showing the truth as the ultimate and says, this is how it is. Now you do the work or not, you know, it falls unto you. So my beloveds, I hope this was in a way helpful. Know that in order to be the miraculous being, you have to do that work of embodiment. You have to make those steps, and you will start to see signs everywhere. You will see, because how you will function, you will see messages everywhere. You will become a being that's so full of love that you will create, you will generate your own messages. You know, you won't just think it comes this way. The horizontal will start to expand for you, you know. I get messages just by going on Google and I type something, or sometimes I misclick on something. Oh wow, something pops out, and these are all messages. And when you live in this kind of world, everything is a miracle, because you are the miracle and you're beginning to be aware of it, and you live your grace. So this is it for today. Long as always. Thank you for staying updated. And there's a beautiful light activation that I just recorded. It's called Shambhala, the Inner Planes Light Activation. It's a 40-minute journey. It's one of my longest light activations on the list. You can find them on my page, Serafina Light, under light activations. It really was recorded through a vision that a master showed me in the summer, how to really access these inner planes and how to claim our own staff of sovereignty. How this sacred pool of light begins to be more accessible to us. So if you're guided, if you're called, check that out. All of my activations are $13, and a lot of that goes to the provider, the client of the webpage. So thank you so much, and as always, so much grace in love, wisdom, and power. Bye-bye for now. Symbolically running for our passageway through the tunnel. Let's do it. Yay, we're doing it. We're exiting on the other side with beautiful companions. Yeah, goats. Capricorn is a sign of stability, righteousness, action. Running. Jumping up and down. No one ever said this will not be bumpy. But look, we're crossing the bridge. And we did it. We're crossing the other side. I will see you there.